Hi, my name is Ken Summers, and I'm the Senior Technical Specialist for Aeroseal. All right, today we're here to talk about Panned Joist Bays. We're going to talk about how they're built, what they're constructed of, and some of the risks that can be associated with having them. Well, let's imagine two floor joists, and the space in between that floor joist is wide open. If you put something underneath it, you will have a pathway for air to move through. The most common thing that you will find that they use would be sheet metal. The reason Panned Joist Bays are used is that they're much easier to build. They're a lot less money than sheet metal ductwork, and they also take up less space in the home. You can butt your sheetrock right up to the ceiling so you can have a higher ceiling level in that area of the house that they're using them in. All right, so why are Panned Joist Bays not really a smart design? Well, number one, they're not airtight. There's many holes by piping or wires that run through it. When they install the material in, they don't get it tight. They haven't sealed it using mastics. That's why in many parts of the country, codes are now requiring us to use one solid piece of pipe. It could be square duct, it could be round duct, but at least when we start out, we have a connection and there's nothing allowing it to have air coming from around it for wherever it goes through, which then can be drawn in negative pressure. So the question always is why is it bad to have leakage in a Panned Joist Bay? Well, the first reason is simply because the air that they're going to pull from that space, it's got to be replaced. We're going to put the area of the basement into a negative pressure. What this can do is, some cases, backdraft gas appliances such as a naturally aspirated water heater. Maybe it's going to backdraft a gas furnace. But in some cases also, it can pull air in from the outside in the summertime, bringing a lot of heat and, more important, humidity into the basement, which can cause humidity issues upstairs, but in addition can cause a lot of ductwork to sweat. In the wintertime, dry air is brought in, which can make it hard to make a house comfortable. The house seems very dry, can cause bloody noses, raspy throats, and in some cases give you flu-like symptoms. In addition, this outside air coming in can make rooms very, very uncomfortable and can affect the efficiency of your equipment. So most homeowners today really don't understand how ductwork has been built or installed in their home. It's not that they don't care about it, they just don't quite understand the ramifications when they have a poorly installed duct system. They've assumed that it was being done by a professional and that the professional put it in properly. It's like anything else that we do. You go to the dentist, you get a tooth filled, you assume that that dentist is knowing how to do it properly and you don't have to worry about it. It's kind of the same thing with the ductwork in the home. It was built by an HVAC contractor. My God, they couldn't have done it wrong. But unfortunately, that is so untrue. The other thing is they don't associate what the problem they are having in that home can be related to a basement duct system, especially one that's just up in between floors. Bringing this to their attention and showing them what can be happening is a perfect way for them to understand it and for them to want to get it fixed. I would say that the majority of all Panned Joist Bays are unsealed. They've never had mastic put into it. They've never had any Aeroseal going through it. They're just left to pull air from wherever they can. And that's the biggest risk that we have. Well, the simple answer to all of this is Panned Joist Bays have to be sealed. You cannot leave them unsealed and expecting to have the job done properly without sealing them first. So in that case, maybe some hand sealing might be needed to help you seal up that duct. Maybe replacing it with a ducted return. But you can't walk away from it. You can't leave it unsealed because that's when problems will arise. Now that we know the Panned Joist Bays do leak, we're going to try to seal these up. You got to have a plan. You got to figure out what you got to do to help alleviate some of the issues that you have. If you just simply go down and hook up Aeroseal and start blowing glue, well, it may happen. It may start to seal it up. But what I found over the years is that many cases, because these things are so leaky, we get glue going everywhere. That'll fog up your basement. It's going to cause problems. You're going to use a lot of sealant. And you know what? You got to do a lot of cleanup. So let's get a little detective work done. Let's get inside. Let's take a look at what could be the possible problems. And then let's do a little hand sealing ahead of time so that when we turn on Aeroseal, we have a much better chance of sealing the ductwork properly and eliminating a lot of potential problems from glue overspray. Okay, so let's get out of the studio here. Let's go out on site. Let's take a look at our ductwork, see what we have to do before we start Aerosealing. All right, today we're out in the house and we're going to be doing an Aeroseal. A typical home, I got a gas furnace. This is an upflow. So my furnace is down below. I go through a coil and I go into a series of ductwork. Over here on the right-hand side, I've got my return coming down. I'm making a 90-degree turn going into the bottom side of it here. As you can see, as we go through the basement, I've got sheet metal ductwork on my supply side that meanders down into a crawl. I'm not too concerned about that because we can seal that with Aeroseal. There's a lot of sheet metal ductwork down here as well that's on the return side. But unfortunately, what happens is some of this return has been put into what we call that panned off joist bay. Right here you can see it, okay, that we're panning off a section of it. I come a little further over, and this is actually a piece of duct, not just panned joist bay, but I got a piece of duct that's just hanging down below with a couple spots that have been opened up above it, and air is supposed to drop down. But as I go back this direction, you're going to see where I've got actual panning material, and that's this sheet metal that's just lining across the top here. It goes back down this wall, and as we said, sheet metal pan returns that actually do leak. I mean, here's a spot. You can just see this is really good. This is going to leak when we put this under pressure. Glue will come out of it. Air gets sucked back into it. So before we start sealing, we want to make sure that we get that sealed up tight so we don't have any problems. But just as an explanation of what they've done here, so let's take a look at these floor joists, okay? This is a typical floor joist that has the subfloor above me, and all they've done here is take a piece of sheet metal and just put it across here to direct air back and then take it to the return. But as you can see down here in this basement, we got a lot of wires, we got a lot of piping. Some of this goes through these returns, and that causes other problems. So we're going to do a little detective work today before we start out. We're going to see how bad this is. We're going to open it up, we're going to get inside, we're going to seal it, and then when we go to do our Aeroseal, it'll be a relatively easy job, and we can get this job finished. So right here what they've done is they've taken their sheet metal and they've used it as a panning piece. But right here you can see that there's an S-cleat right here. What they've done is they've brought it up, they shoved it into one side right here. On the other end of it is the other side of the S-cleat, and they've brought another piece of sheet metal back this way. So this right here is going to leak. Also, we've got it back here doing exactly the same thing. So we're going to get some glue coming out of both these spots, and of course these edges are quite a bit, got a lot of gaps in it. So we, just to help us out, and since we're going to have it out to do these holes, we'll go ahead and throw some mastic on here just to help eliminate a lot of the overspray down here in the basement. All right, so to get started, what we're going to do today is I'm going to use my fan box just as a way to push air. I'm going to try to figure out what's going on. So I'm going to hook up my lay flat. I've got an injection point that we're going to cut in right here. So we'll have lay flat coming from my fan box to this injection point. We'll block everything off right here at the furnace so that what we're going to do is pressurize the return. We're not pre-testing, we're just going to pressurize it. We're going to put smoke in there using a fog machine, and we're going to start to determine where this air is going. Some of it may come into the basement, some of it may go upstairs, some of it may not even be seen, and then we can do a quick test to see how tight the duct is. Again, not for a pre-test, but just to kind of get a better handle of what we're up against. All right, so during our inspection, when we came along and we looked at this panning material, I had felt some air coming out with just the furnace running. I looked back up inside here, we got some supply leakage again, we can fix that, but the big concern I have, if you can see up in here, I've got this return, and the wood is actually, looks like it's been some termite gotten through there, so I've got a big hole that we're going to have to hand fix before we start aerosealing. We're going to notice this, we're going to hook up the fog here in a minute. But I've also got a couple of great big holes. They're in the wood right here that go all the way through. It looks like there was some wiring, but if you come back over here and look down inside, man, this one's going to be a little bit difficult, but we can get in there. And you can see some huge holes in the back here. This plywood looks like it was maybe put there to kind of help it, but we're going to have to seal that up and fix this whole pan joist bay before we start the Aeroseal process. All right, so to make sure we can find other spots that may be leaking, what we're going to do is we're going to fog the system using a little fogger at the back. As the fog comes through, if there's holes in it, oh my God, look at this right here. Can you see that fog? I mean, there is something bad wrong right there. We're going to have to pull this sheetrock down and see what's really going on. And yeah, that's got a big hole back in there somewhere. Guys, if I tried to Aeroseal this right now without finding this ahead of time, we would have had a huge mess down here. Let's go over here and see if we've got some additional leakage. Let's get some more fog coming. Oh yeah, here we are. Remember that spot I showed you that I found ahead of time? That's definitely got a serious issue right here. That looks like it's part of the other side of this rock that we've got, but that That joist itself has been eaten away. There's some holes in it. Again, this has got to get fixed before we try to Aeroseal it. All right, so as we saw in the few minutes ago, we put the fog through it, and we saw a lot of smoke coming out of this area. So we've gone ahead and pulled out that sheetrock. It was really there was for no purpose other than they're using it for a vibration source right here on this gas pipe. We'll do something different when we're finished. But here's what concerns me the most. If you look back up in here, now I'm going to take my little handheld fogger, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back behind me here, right at the spot where this panning meets my ductwork. And let's see what happens here. Okay, see all that smoke coming pouring back at me? That means I have no connection between here and here without a great big hole in between the two. So we're going to have to get up there and fix that. And the reason why it's so important, because this is the return side. If I don't fix that, I seal my supply ductwork, all the air from this basement gets sucked up into this hole right here, down into my return. And guys, I'm going to tell you, we got a dehumidifier down here. And there's a reason for it, because this area is humid in the summertime. All that humidity is in this basement. We're going to suck it into my return. It hurts my air conditioning, but as I get rid of my supply duct leakage, all of a sudden now I got real cold ductwork in a basement that is hot and humid, and everything's going to sweat. So I got to stop this from happening and get rid of. We talked earlier about that negative pressure. That's how that pressure is created. Air being pulled out of this space and going through my supply system. Okay, so let me explain what we're doing right now. So I've got my fan box behind me or in front of me over here, and I've got my lay flat hooked up to it. I've turned the fan on, and so what's going on here is I'm pulling air out of this basement, I'm pushing it down through this duct system, and then it goes in at this injection point. So when I find a hole, the air gets pushed back at me. Now in real life, when we're not hooked up and we're not using our fan, the fan box down here is actually pulling air in. This is the return side. So it's a vacuum pressure or a suction pressure. And that's why it's so bad for us. We can't see what goes on down here, but we know it's humid, we know it gets hot, we know it gets cold. All that air gets pulled back into this return, and we got to stop that from happening. So be aware, when it's running, we're not pressurizing, it's pulling. Okay, let me explain to you what I got going on here. Now this is just a fog machine, like a party fogger. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn this on. I've got my fan running. I'm pushing air down through the duct system. And what's going to happen here, the fog is going to get pulled up and pushed inside. That way I can distinguish where it comes out, and you can find all the leaks in it. So all I got to do here on this one is just push this little button, and you can see that fog just come pouring out and getting inside. And within a couple of seconds, the fog comes rolling out, and now we can distinguish that we have leakage. This does two benefits for me. Number one, it's a good demonstration for me to figure out if I've got leakage. But number two, if fog comes out, I know that glue is also going to come out, and that's why I want to make sure I fix it. It helps reduce the amount of fogging in the basement. It's sticky, it gets on the people's belongings down here. So I want to reduce as much as I possibly can, and this is just a great tool to help me locate that. So guys, what we're going to do right here now is just, we're not doing this for our pre-seal test or any of our aero sealing. We're just going to determine how bad the leakage is. So I've taken and filled out my computer all the way up, and I'm going to do a pre-seal test. We'll come back afterwards when we start to seal and actually do a finished model. We just want to find out how much leakage we have in the system. So what I'm going to do is use my Aeroseal system for doing that. So give us a second here, and we're going to turn on the blower here by using my pre-seal, and we're going to determine how much leakage we have just in my return. And once we fix it, we'll come back and then remeasure it again to kind of get a good idea of how much we have left. We're going to start out in gate number 2. Remember, when you're doing this, I have to have a minimum of fan box pressure of -4 pascals. That's a vacuum pressure. And I got to get my duct leakage or my duct pressure up to 10 pascals. Let's see if we can do that with just gate number 2 here. So what we've done here is we've hooked up our lay flat, we've done a test just on the return side, we've blocked the equipment off. We want to see how many square inches of holes that we're up against that we need to seal up so we can actually do an Aeroseal job. I had to have it all the way open in gate number 1. I couldn't get a pressure of 25 pascals. The maximum I could get was only 12. and it came up with 638 CFMs of leakage. But more importantly to me is I got a 127 square inch hole in this return side. So what we're going to do is we're going to start opening up. We're going to plug it. We're going to try and get that down so that when we start aerosealing, we got a much better chance of getting a good tight duct system. Okay, as you saw downstairs, we had a lot of leakage. So we've come up and we've pulled the returns back open again. We've looked inside. Man, these things are really, really leaky. But the good news is that we can get down inside. Now it's time to get a little dirty, do some patching with some mastic. I also recommend a product that's called a Coroplast. I call it a Corex board. You've probably seen it in people's yard signs for sale, or maybe politicians to put it up. You can find it at Home Depot, Staples, Office Depot, something in your area. I always recommend using this. It's a great piece of material that you can wedge in, and then you use mastic over it. On top of that, we also get some mastic tape. Sometimes it's easier to get that in there as well. Bottom line is I'm not trying to make it airtight. All I want to do is make it tighter than it was before, so that when I hook up Aeroseal, it'll go ahead and finish doing the job for me. Okay guys, as you saw earlier, we were quite leaky, so what we did is we started sealing everything up. Went upstairs, pulled off the grills, got down inside, got a little dirty, came down here and we started sealing up everything we could reach and get to. We cut some holes into it. We got inside and sealed the ductwork. We came over here, we found a great big hole in kind of a half-assed duct that was not really a pan duct. It was more of a duct with an opening at the top of it. And we got that sealed up. Then we came in here where we found all of that opening that was in the wood that had rotted out. We got that sealed up. And so I think we got a pretty good seal going on here. What I want to do next is we're going to go ahead and pressurize the duct system again. We're going to call it the pre-seal. It's not going to be the only pre-seal. We'll do another one later on before we start sealing. But let's see what we did. We started out with 127 square inches. Let's see if we got it down low enough to where we feel we can go ahead and do the Aeroseal. Okay, welcome back here. We just wanted to go over the end of the job with you here. We got this sealed up. Remember when we started, we separated the two. We started out with our return side, and our return came up with 128 square inches of duct leakage on it. Because it's panned, we knew that we had some problems in there. We'd have to go ahead and fix that. So we spent a little time doing some sealing, doing a little bit of repair work. Then we retested it, got it down to 79 square inches, and then we were able to Aeroseal. With our Aeroseal, we finished up the sealing. We got it down to 5 square inches of duct leakage on the return side. Now our supply side was not really all that bad, but we had 27 square inches of duct leakage on it. So we went ahead and sealed the supply side up. Had to do a little hand sealing here and there because of the some sizable gaps in it. But overall, we were able to get that down. We got that underneath a little bit of 5 square inches of duct leakage as well. So overall, we're really, really happy with this job. We took it down from basically 150 square inches. We got it down to 10 square inches, both supply and return. And now we're going to have a very satisfied customer, and we're not going to have any issues with any of the outside air coming in. Now, the one thing we are going to do to finish this job up, though, I stopped all of the supply duct leakage down here in the basement. I've still got a little bit of return, so I'm putting the basement underneath a small little negative pressure. So all we're going to do to take care of that is we're just going to cut a grill in the door to the upstairs. It's kind of off to the side so people don't mind putting the grill in there. By adding that grill, we're going to eliminate that negative pressure down here in the basement, and everything will be good. So we're real happy on this one. We did a great seal. Customer is going to be very satisfied. It's going to be a lot more comfortable upstairs, and overall, a great job. Okay, we're back in the studio, and as you saw the house we just worked on, well, that was a pretty big job. What we had to do is get inside. We found some major leaks in those return chases. We got some Corex board in there. We bent it, we cut it, we jammed it into space, and of course we took mastic with paintbrushes and sealed it down tight. All we wanted to do was make that duct system so we could build up a pressure and then Aeroseal it with our Aeroseal system. It was a lot of work, but we were able to get it done. So let's just wrap this up and summarize the key points we went through today. Number one, you want to educate yourself on Panned Joist Bays and the problems that can happen with them. Number two, make sure you gather your information ahead of time. This will make it so much easier on the day of the job. Number three, know what you have to seal by hand. Make sure you always do your hand sealing, though, after your pre-test. And please protect the belongings of the homeowner in that house. If you want to know more about why it's important to seal both supply and return, please check out our podcast, which we go into much more detail. Hey, thanks for listening, and have a good day.